All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into a local story, one that's been making a lot of noise in St. Johns County, Florida. It involves veterans and respect, a whole lot of controversy, all surrounding a change in who leads the Pledge of Allegiance at the county commission meetings.
Oh, yeah. It's always interesting to see how what seems like a pretty simple procedural change can trigger such a strong reaction, especially when we're talking about something as emotionally charged as, like, honoring veterans.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a whole stack of news articles, public statements, even a profile on a key player to help us break this all down. So you ready to dive in?
Let's do it.
All right, so the change itself is this. Commissioner Krista Joseph, the newly elected chair, decided that from now on, county staff members who are veterans will lead the Pledge of Allegiance instead of members of the Veterans Council. So at first glance, it might seem like a pretty minor tweak, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reaction from the Veterans Council chairman, anything but minor.
Yeah, you're calling me. LT Curl Bill Dudley, the chairman of the Veterans Council, he publicly expressed shock and outrage at the change, accusing her of pushing the Veterans Council aside.
Wow, that's a strong reaction. It seems like he took this change as like a deliberate attempt to disrespect veterans and diminish the role of the Veterans Council, but
Hold on, because there's another side to this story. Commissioner Joseph has repeatedly stated that her goal was actually to be more inclusive of veterans by opening up the opportunity to lead the pledge to a wider range of people, including those who might not be members of the council.
right, and that's where this situation gets really interesting, right? You have these two very different interpretations of the same event, both kind of loaded with emotion and potentially, fueled by misunderstandings. Exactly, and just to add to the whole mix, other commissioners weighed in with their own opinions, creating a real mix of viewpoints on this issue. Commissioner Christian Whitehurst, he disagreed with the change outright, while Commissioner Sarah Arnold, she raised concerns about a lack of transparency in how the decision was made. On the other hand, you have Commissioner Ann Taylor, who voiced her support for Commissioner Joseph's intention to be more inclusive.
Yeah, it's clear that this is an issue that's become quite divisive, even among elected officials. But let's go back to Bill Dudley's response for a moment. What's particularly striking is that he not only expressed his outrage to the media, but then he also repeated his accusations against Commissioner Joseph at a following commission meeting, which reportedly caused quite a stir among those present.
Yeah, he really doubled down on his position, framing this as a personal attack on veterans and using his platform to put public pressure on Commissioner Joseph, which I think raises some important questions about the role of the Veterans Council, right? Dudley himself has stated that the council is not a political organization, yet his actions in this situation, they seem inherently political.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? Was going to the media the most appropriate course of action for the chairman of a supposedly non-political organization? Couldn't he have, approached Commissioner Joseph directly to voice his concerns and seek clarification before making such public accusations?
That's a great point. It seems like there was a real missed opportunity for dialogue and understanding here. And it begs the question, did Dudley's actions, while intending to defend veterans, actually end up making the situation worse and potentially damaging the reputation of the Veterans Council in the process?
It's certainly a possibility worth considering. And to complicate matters further, this controversy happened just a few months after Dudley received St. Augustine's highest honor, the Order of Florida, for his service to the community.
Wow.
So, this kind of juxtaposition adds a layer of irony to the whole situation, raising questions about whether his recent actions align with the values and principles he's been recognized for.
Yeah, that's quite a contrast from receiving the highest honor to being embroiled in a very public and heated controversy.
Yeah.
It paints a complicated picture of Bill Dudley, the man at the center of this whole storm. So to understand his reaction better, let's take a look at his background. This guy has an incredibly impressive resume, decades of service in the Air Force, and a long history of advocating for veterans in St. Johns County.
Yeah, his profile is truly remarkable. He's led the Veterans Council for 10 years and been instrumental in establishing a veterans treatment court, securing a van for disabled American veterans, ensuring handicapped parking at county buildings, and even helping to establish a community-based outpatient clinic for veterans. It's clear he's dedicated his life to serving others.
So we have this incredibly accomplished veteran, a man who has clearly made significant positive contributions to his community, reacting so strongly to a seemingly well-intentioned change. It makes you wonder, was there something more going on? Beneath the surface, was there a deeper reason for his intense reaction? Could it be that his long history of leadership made him feel threatened by this change, even if it wasn't intended to be a personal slight.
I think those are some really important questions to consider. They really highlight the human element of this whole situation. We're not just dealing with policies and procedures here, we're dealing with people, their emotions, their perceptions, their personal histories, and sometimes those personal factors, they can play a really big role in how we interpret events and react to change.
Absolutely. So how do we reconcile these seemingly contradictory aspects of Bill Dudley's story? The decorated veteran, the community leader, the man who publicly condemned a newly elected official for what he perceived as an attack on veterans. It's a complex and nuanced situation. It's easy to get swept up in the emotional currents of the story. But let's try to take a step back. Look at this from a more objective perspective.
Okay, yeah, let's analyze this a bit more closely. Was Commissioner Joseph's goal genuinely to be more inclusive, as she stated? Could this change have been handled differently to avoid the perception of disrespecting the Veterans Council? And was Bill Dudley's reaction proportionate to the situation, or did it cross a line?
These are crucial questions. And it's important for you, our listener, to think critically about the information we've presented and draw your own conclusions.
Yeah, we're going to be right back to delve deeper into this whole Veterans Council controversy
Yeah.
and explore the broader implications of this situation. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Before we went to, before the break, we were talking about the sharp contrast between Bill Dudley's long history of service and then his very public condemnation of Commissioner Joseph. And it's easy to get caught up in the emotional aspects of the situation, but I think it's important to step back and analyze Bill Dudley's actions a bit more critically.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And while it's understandable for veterans to feel a sense of pride and ownership over traditions like leading the Pledge of Allegiance, I think it is crucial to examine whether Dudley's reaction was proportionate to the situation and whether he upheld the values of respect and professionalism that we expect from those who have served our country.
Yeah, exactly. By immediately going to the media and accusing Commissioner Joseph of disrespecting veterans, Dudley essentially bypassed any opportunity for open dialogue and understanding. It creates the impression that he was more interested in generating a sensational headline than in genuinely understanding Commissioner Joseph's intentions or working towards a mutually agreeable solution.
Yeah, and that lack of communication really seems to be at the heart of this whole issue. Instead of reaching out to Commissioner Joseph directly to express his concerns and seek clarification, Dudley chose to paint her in a negative light publicly, potentially damaging her reputation and undermining her ability to effectively lead the county.
Yeah, that's a key point. Regardless of his past service, Dudley's actions in this situation raise serious questions about his judgment and professionalism. You have to wonder if this approach aligns with the values of respect for authority and reasoned discourse that are instilled in those who serve in the military.
And it's important to remember that Dudley doesn't speak for all veterans. In fact, there's evidence that some veterans in St. Johns County actually support Commissioner Joseph's decision to be more inclusive. By presenting himself as the sole voice of the veteran community, Dudley risks silencing those who hold differing opinions. It's a classic case of assuming you represent the whole, when in reality there are many diverse perspectives within the veteran community.
Yeah, it's crucial to remember that veterans, just like any other demographic group, are not a monolithic entity. They have a wide range of views, opinions, and experiences, and it's unfair to assume they all agree with Dudley's approach, especially when it comes to something as sensitive as representing veterans in the public sphere.
Right, and this situation really highlights the danger of jumping to conclusions and making assumptions without first seeking to understand the full context. Commissioner Joseph stated that her goal was to be more inclusive, not to dismiss the contributions of the Veterans Council.
Absolutely. And it's worth noting that Dudley himself claims that the Veterans Council is a non-political organization. Yet by going to the media and calling for Commissioner Joseph's resignation, he arguably injected politics into the situation.
Exactly, and this brings us back to the core issue of communication. If Dudley had taken the time to speak with Commissioner Joseph directly, he might have discovered that her intentions were completely different from how he initially perceived them. A simple conversation could have prevented a lot of misunderstanding and prevented this whole situation from escalating.
It's a shame that this opportunity for dialogue was missed. Imagine if, instead of a public confrontation, we had seen an example of respectful discourse and collaboration between a veteran leader and a newly elected official.
Yeah, that would have been a powerful message, wouldn't it? It would have demonstrated a commitment to working together for the good of the community, even when disagreements arise.
Exactly. It would have been a testament to the values of unity and mutual respect that we often associate with those who have served our country. Unfortunately, that's not the path that was chosen in this case.
Instead, we see a situation where potentially good intentions were misconstrued, leading to a public spectacle that has divided the community and raised questions about the judgment of those involved.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the importance of clear communication, empathy, and the willingness to listen to different perspectives, especially in today's world where information spreads so quickly and it's easy to form opinions based on incomplete or misleading narratives.
You're hitting on a crucial point there. It's so easy to get caught up in the emotional heat of the moment and make assumptions without fully understanding the other side's perspective. This case is a prime example of how a lack of communication and a rush to judgment can lead to unnecessary conflict and damage relationships.
Absolutely. And in this particular instance, it's not just a matter of personal relationships being strained. Dudley's actions have the potential to negatively impact the perception of veterans in the community.
You mean by creating the impression that veterans are inflexible, resistant to change, and quick to resort to public attacks rather than respectful dialogue.
Exactly. It's important to remember that not all veterans subscribe to this approach, and many may even find Dudley's actions to be counterproductive and harmful to the reputation of the veteran community.
This situation reminds us that leadership, regardless of the context, comes with a responsibility to act thoughtfully, communicate clearly, and strive to understand different viewpoints.
Well said. And it's a reminder that even those with impressive credentials and a history of service are capable of making poor decisions that can have far-reaching consequences.
This deep dive has been a real eye-opener. We've seen how a seemingly minor procedural change can spiral into a major controversy, highlighting the complexities of communication, leadership, and perception, especially when it comes to a topic as emotionally charged as honoring veterans. But we've also seen how this situation presents an opportunity for reflection and growth.
Right. This is a chance for the community to engage in some honest conversations about how they want to honor veterans and how they want to handle disagreements in a way that is constructive and respectful. It's a chance to learn from this experience and move forward in a way that fosters understanding and unity.
Those are excellent points. So what can we as individuals learn from this situation? How can we apply these lessons to our own lives and interactions with others? We'll explore these questions and more when we return for the final part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned for the conclusion of our exploration of this complex and thought-provoking case study.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been spending this episode unpacking this controversy. In St. Johns County, Florida, where a change in who leads, takes a breath, the Pledge of Allegiance at county commission meetings sparked, a whole firestorm of reaction.
It has been fascinating, hasn't it? Yeah, on the surface, it just seems like a little procedural tweak, but as we've seen, it goes so much deeper into issues of respect and tradition, and those really complex dynamics between veterans, elected officials, and the public.
Exactly. And before the break, we were talking about how Bill Dudley's actions, while intending to defend veterans, might have actually had the unintended consequence of casting them in a negative light.
So that raises an important question for me. What message does this send to the wider community, especially those who may not be familiar with the nuances of veterans' issues or local politics? Yeah, that's a really crucial point. Dudley's public accusations and that call for Commissioner Joseph's resignation could easily be interpreted as an overreaction, especially given her stated goal of being more inclusive, not less. And this perception, it could lead some people to view veterans as resistant to change, unwilling to share the spotlight, or even disrespectful of civilian leadership.
Yeah, it almost reinforces a stereotype, doesn't it? Like
Yeah.
the angry vet who's stuck in the past and can't adapt to a changing world, which is incredibly unfair to the vast majority of veterans who are, in fact, incredibly adaptable, resilient, and committed to serving their communities in countless ways.
Precisely. And I think it highlights the responsibility that comes with being a public figure, especially when you're representing a group like veterans. Dudley's actions, whether intentionally or not, they have the potential to really shape public perception of an entire community.
So what can we learn from this, both as individuals and as a society? How can we ensure that veterans are honored and respected without resorting to those, divisive tactics,
Or
reinforcing harmful stereotypes?
Yeah. Well, I think it all starts with communication. If Dudley had approached Commissioner Joseph directly, just to express his concerns and seek clarification, maybe this whole situation could have been avoided. It's a reminder that open and honest dialogue is just essential for building understanding and trust, especially when you're dealing with sensitive issues.
And it's not just about veterans talking to elected officials. It's about all of us being willing to listen to different perspectives, even when we disagree, It's about assuming good intentions and seeking common ground, rather than jumping to conclusions or resorting to personal attacks.
Absolutely. We live in a world where it's so easy to retreat into our own little echo chambers and demonize anyone who holds a different view. But real progress, whether it's in politics, community relations, or even personal relationships, it requires a willingness to engage in respectful dialogue, even when it's challenging.
Yeah, it's about recognizing that disagreement doesn't have to equal disrespect. We can challenge ideas without attacking people. We can advocate for our beliefs without resorting to that, inflammatory rhetoric or those divisive tactics.
And perhaps most importantly, we can learn from our mistakes. Both Bill Dudley and Commissioner Joseph could have handled this situation differently. Hopefully, this experience will serve as a learning moment for all involved, prompting them to reflect on their actions and consider how they might approach similar situations in the future with more grace and understanding.
It's a reminder that leadership is not about being right all the time, but about being willing to listen, learn, and adapt. It's about building bridges, not walls. And it's about recognizing that true strength lies in our ability to find common ground and work together towards a shared goal, even when we don't see eye to eye on every single issue.
Well said. And I think that's a powerful message to leave our listeners with today. This deep dive into the Veterans Council controversy has been a real journey through the complexities of communication and leadership and the challenges of representing a diverse community. But it's also been a testament to the importance of empathy, dialogue, and the ongoing pursuit of understanding.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We encourage you to continue reflecting on this situation and to engage in those respectful conversations with others who may hold different views. After all, that's what the deep dive is all about: exploring complex issues, challenging assumptions, and expanding our understanding of the world around us.
And until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep striving to make the world a better place, one conversation at a time.